All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. As usual, if you've been on an MCT webinar before, we'll give it another minute or two for those popping on. We just kind of have a wave of folks that are getting on right now. So we'll give it another minute or so, and then we'll kick it off here. All right. I think we'll get this kicked off. So thanks everybody for joining us today here. Today we're going to talk about MCT Marketplace and some of our CRA acquisition and correspondent channel tools. So appreciate everybody hopping on. My name is Justin Grant here. Danielle, if you want to move to the next slide. For those that we've got some familiar faces on here, but a lot of new folks. This being an industry webinar, so for those that don't know, I'm Senior Director here, Head of Investor Services at MCT. So again, thanks for joining us today, and we'll kind of get started. So let's start with kind of what we're going to cover today with the agenda. So being that a lot of you are new faces, kind of go over a brief overview of just what is MCT Marketplace, kind of the scope of the industry that we touch, type of loans that are trading on our platform, and then get into some of the tools that we've got for buyers out there in the marketplace, be it new folks who are looking to get into correspondent or existing buyers who need some help with some added efficiencies, or just trying to sharpen their pencil and be more competitive. Then we'll kind of finish it off with focusing a little bit on CRA and some of the tools we have for those depositories out there that are looking to meet their goals and consistently source these loans and their footprint throughout the year. And also how we're going to be kind of extending that functionality for non-CRA loans as well, kind of what we're currently calling our open pipeline viewer. So excited to spend the next almost hour or so with everybody. We'll definitely save time at the end for Q&A. Feel free, though, if you've got any questions, to type those into the questions bar there, and if something comes up it's applicable to what I'm talking about, I'll answer on the fly. Otherwise, we'll reserve some of those for the end there. So, Danielle, if you want to move to the next slide. All right. So, what is MCT Marketplace? Simply, MCT Marketplace is the largest mortgage asset exchange that connects buyers and sellers in a unique digital auction, regardless of counterparty approval status. sellers on the platform have access to pretty much every agency takeout in the market, agency eligible loan takeout, and buyers are seamlessly connected to the industry's largest community of sellers. So quite simply, if you are a lender looking to sell your loans, looking for added liquidity, maybe some investors, the obvious names out there, but also some maybe not so obvious. And if you're a buyer looking for, a nice one-stop shop to, buy whatever it is that you've got an axe for, MCT Marketplace is your spot. And Danielle, if you want to move to the next slide, I'll kind of give everybody a little bit of an idea of, what exactly is supported, how folks are transacting on the platform. So, really every execution type is available in the MCT Marketplace. And we have added automation for support to help, both buyers and sellers with the process. So currently that means bulk bidding, both cash window and MBS execution types are supported, and that's for lenders who are both retaining servicing and also selling on a co-issue basis. Those of you know MCT know that we can't go a webinar without talking about AOT as well, and that's certainly a big execution type that we support on our platform, one that's being leveraged, and I'll show you guys some stats on that here in a bit. Folks do direct trades or forwards on the platform, and then albeit a smaller percentage, but there's still a lot of execution types out there that rely on kind of a rate sheet based price, be it a short-term best efforts or even a portfolio not agency type of execution. Our marketplace can support that as well. So these are all types of executions that if you're a lender or a seller on the platform, MCT Marketplace is ingesting. We've got the relationships with the buyers, we've got the cash window API connections with the agencies. Our pricing team is ingesting these rate sheets on a daily basis. So all these executions that a typical lender seller might be looking at when they're going through their best execution process, those are being ingested, put in a nice format, for them to analyze. So for you as a buyer out there, whether you're buying, through, multiple executions that I've just listed here, or you're focused on just one style, we can certainly support that on the platform. Another thing that makes our marketplace unique is that we're not just facilitating transactions between approved counterparties. We've enabled functionality that allows sellers to view pricing from buyers, other investors whom they are not approved with. And that's, as you can imagine, a huge advantage for both parties, right? At the end of the day, we want to bring visibility and transparency to the market. So we've got a lot of executions that are being shown, every single loan sale that's occurring on the platform, where buyers are able to display their pricing to prospective sellers, and those sellers are able to see what else is out there besides just their universe of approved investors. And we've made transactions available via, those unapproved counterparties with what we like to call a security spread commitment. And so rather than committing to a fixed price, these unapproved counterparties can, quote unquote, transact using a spread to the underlying security, which kind of gives the seller certainty, of the shadow price, while also protecting the buyer, from any market movement that occurs until the lender actually gets approved, which at that point the price will be responded to current market. So it's a nice way to kind of start off a relationship from that standpoint, and one that's again very very unique. And we're also excited. We're going to be expanding the marketplace to non-agency production as well next year. So keep an eye out for that. Currently, a lot of the production flowing through the marketplace is all agency eligible. We have a big initiative to expand that into non-agency, non-QM next year. So more to come there, and we'll definitely be sharing more with everybody as we bring that enhancement. Danielle, we go to the next one there. So I mentioned a lot of different types of execution. Just want to give everybody a quick overview of kind of the breakdown of what's occurring. How loans are being transacted on the platform. And I know this graphic might be a little hard to read, but what we're showing here is just for the course of 2024, how loans are going, whether it's to an aggregator or to the agency, whether the loan's being retained or sold co-issue. And pretty much what you can see here is throughout most of the year, about 60% of the production is going directly to aggregators. A little more than a quarter is being sold directly to the agencies, and servicing is being retained. And then just shy of 15% is being sold to the agencies on a co-issue basis. So again, if you're a buyer coming onto the platform, about 75% of the production being sold off is being sold off on a servicing release basis. So obviously, a good opportunity. Good opportunity there if you're looking to source certain types of loans. Danielle, if you want to go to the next one. I mentioned AOTs. A very meaningful percentage of the entire loan commitment volume is being assigned away to the aggregators right now. So if you just look year to date, you can see we're averaging just shy of $3 billion a month in assignments. So that's pretty good. And I think we might have just had our record here eclipsing $4 billion last month in October. So very meaningful. Again, those of you who know MCT, we tout the obvious savings, which have kind of increased on average as kind of Fed's pulled back support over the last couple of years. We've seen those bid-ask spreads wider on average. So there's very meaningful savings. And, for buyers, they're looking to come in or currently in and not supporting an AOT execution. That's definitely one you want to seriously consider, because it provides a very meaningful monetary advantage to the sellers out there in the marketplace, as well as some other cash benefits as well. So again, any given month, that's 15 to 20% of total production is being assigned. So it's a very meaningful number that's consistently occurring on the platform on a monthly basis. Danielle, if you want to go to the next. So just to give you a little more of a kind of an idea of what's the makeup. We talked about how loans are being transacted, but if you're a buyer coming on the platform, what can you expect to find here? So through 2024, about $17 billion a month is being committed on average through our marketplace. And again, that's predominantly agency eligible volume. The vast majority of that is agency eligible volume, and about 2/3 of that is conventional, a third government. You can see here we've got a few interesting spec buckets. Obviously come down over previous years, but about 4% of that is high val, 31%, so almost a third is spec eligible across the multitude of spec buckets that are out there. 6% kind of lower FICO govies. We have buyers on the platform looking to source second homes and non-owners. You can see that's comprises about 7% of the market. So just a few highlights there of the types of collateral depending on what you're looking for. As far as the sellers that are on the platform, we've got about 272 active sellers, and that number is growing every month as we continue to add new lenders onto the platform. Just to give you an idea of the makeup of those lenders, about 75% are IMBs. The other 25%, comprised of depositories and credit unions. So we have, a good mix of lenders spanning the country, every range of volume and net worth, size. We have lenders as small, as roughly 10 million a month, up to, lenders who are originating a couple billion a month, and everywhere in between. So, again, a good kind of good variety of lenders on the platform. And over 200 of them are approved with at least one of the agencies. So again, for those of you who might be interested in purchasing on kind of a co-issue basis, right, there's a good majority of the lenders have the ability to sell directly to the agency and are looking at co-issue options. For those that kind of interested in potential CRA, AMI related stuff, we've got a graphic here coming up next just to show the geographical coverage of our client base, and that spans the majority of zip codes and MSA tracks in the U.S. Maybe Danielle, if you want to go to the next one there. So you can see here, this is just looking at 2024, just from a visual standpoint. Our lenders' origination footprint across the country there. So pretty good geographical dispersion for those that are maybe needing to source loans based on again CRA or just certain footprint. All right, next one, Danielle. All right, so that's now we've kind of given a little overview of just what you can expect on the marketplace, how folks are transacting, and the types of collateral that you as a potential buyer would expect to see shown through the platform. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the tools that we have available for those buyers that are out there, and really, we've got tools to help those who are new entrants into the space. Really a complete technology package for those buyers, or for the established investors that are out there. They're just looking to help improve market share, drive some efficiencies. We've got an array of products and tools that really can help you out depending on what you need, and we'll dive into those. But at the end of the day, these tools, these technology solutions are allowing you to provide executable pricing to the industry's largest seller community in one platform. So a few things that we'll cover. We've got embedded bid tape pricing tools and API connectivity. Name of the game at Correspondent now is, unless you're looking to source kind of niche product, it's a very competitive market. So you need to have a lot of sellers signed up, which means you're processing a lot of bid tapes on a daily basis. And that means you need to be efficient with that process. It's not uncommon that as a buyer you might be processing 100, 200, 300 plus bid tapes in a given day, especially if you're doing some of the live shadow bidding that's available on our platform. So we've got some very granular pricing tools to help with that. And if you're if you've developed some in-house tools that are kind of homegrown, we have some APIs that will allow you to connect to the marketplace. and kind of remove that human element of kind of the downloading and the uploading process. That's typical when that's happening, that there might be, 2, 3, 4 persons dedicated to just facilitating that. And the API helps to, completely remove the human element and automate that process. We'll kind of go over some of the, the features of the the pricing tools. But really they allow you to get granular as a buyer, and really program in the pricing that that you want to offer on certain types of loans and restrict out other types, and get more aggressive maybe for certain loan parameters and not on others. Very easy margin management tools. If you are a seller, again, new or looking to scale and add more sellers, more approved sellers, we've got an automated shadow bidding program to help you, really help act as a sales extension for your correspondent program, so that you can get your price, your correspondent program in front of a lot of prospective lenders all at once. So we'll kind of go over some of the tools here in a bit that help facilitate that. And then obviously, when you're bidding on a lot of tapes daily, it's very dynamic. Things are moving every day. Just being able to crunch the data, evaluate competitiveness, and see where there might be pockets of opportunity with small improvements. Margins are low in correspondence, so every little bit counts, and every potential small tweak with a meaningful bump in results is extremely important to be keeping an eye out for. So we've got some very actionable analytics to help you as a buyer constantly monitor that and keep an eye out for opportunities. So Danielle, if you want to go to the next, we'll kind of dig into what we call our AutoBid tools here. So as a buyer, again, if you're in the market outside of a homegrown Excel-based pricing model, which works on a smaller scale, but again, as you start to scale up in Correspondent, add more and more lenders, you're processing a lot of tapes on a daily basis. Going back to the granularity, you may need to have different margins by, at the lender level. Certainly, programming in different pricing for different loan parameters. You need a very dynamic tool to help with that process and automate the process. And our AutoBid software definitely helps with that. So whether you're a cash window seller, or you're pooling and creating MBS, or maybe you're even pricing strategies more portfolio based and working off of a rate sheet, our tools can tie in all of those executions. If you're a cash window seller, we're connected to those agency APIs that help bring in that pricing. And what you're seeing here is this nice bid review summary that will pop up when you're evaluating a bid. And there's all kinds of interactivity within the tool, but at the end of the day, you're clicking 2 buttons to pull up the bid and run the pricing and get that back to the seller. So it's extremely efficient and accurate. You'll see here down below, there's a lot of things you can do on the fly as far as pulling up eligibility and seeing why loans didn't price, looking at loan parameters or filtering down to certain types of loans within that bid, and manipulating margin on the fly. So it's a very, very dynamic tool. And again, one that's going to help you process bids very efficiently. Danielle, why don't you pop to the next slide, and we'll kind of show some of the margin management features outside of standard agency LLPAs that'll be programmed in. We have an array of kind of margin management features really allow you to price down to the client or kind of loan attribute level. And what you're seeing here is what we call our multi-factor component margin. And so really this lets you as a buyer get as granular as you need on the pricing. So you can choose from any number of loan parameters or loan attributes to set a margin or even restrict a bid on a certain type of loan. So combinations are essentially endless here. If you need to get granular and for certain products in a certain state with a certain property type and loan amount, if you need all those conditions to fire, that's very easy to set up within our tools and set that margin. And then from there, it's set it and forget it. The tool will take care of the bidding, the appropriate pricing, and then you can edit as you need, as the appetite changes for that particular type of loan. So a lot of ways to set margins for the collateral that you want to bid on, so that you can price what you want on the types of loans that you're looking for. Danielle, let's pop to the next one. One of the other great things about our tool is the seller management piece, right? Especially as again, as you start to, as a buyer, get more and more lenders approved. There's a lot of stopgaps, a lot of rules you might want to put in place, for those lenders. At the lender level, we have what we call AutoBid functionality, which I mentioned hitting 2 buttons to run pricing for a lender. You can actually set the tool up to automatically return the pricing without even having to hit a button. So you can imagine as you're bidding on a lot of tapes, that's a huge time saver. But with our seller management console that you're viewing part of that here, that can be enabled at the client level, and even setting a tape size. So you might say, hey, I'm fine with this running for every tape that's 5 million and less, but anything over that, I want to take a little closer look at and maybe see if I want to sharpen my pencil a little bit on certain types of loans on those larger tapes. So that can all be programmed in. If you're offering AOT, we'll show that here in a second. You can control that approval at the lender level for your sellers. If for some reason there's folks who you haven't approved internally for doing assignments with you, that can be done. So a whole host of kind of seller management features within the tool that allow you to manage all of those sellers that you're bidding on on a daily basis. All right, Danielle, let's pop to the next one. All right, so I just mentioned AOT. One of the biggest challenges that we see buyers, not offering the assignment is the extra math involved, right? When you're taking an assignment, you're getting a trade or a couple of trades. You've got to basically incorporate that gain loss on the trade and update your bid price, right, to incorporate that trade gain or loss that you're taking on. If you're using our bidding tools, the tool automatically handles that. You'll see a nice breakout where you can see, what those trades are, how much in or out of the money they are, and then the basis point effect to the loans being assigned, whether it's positive or negative, and then kind of arriving at what we call a net AOT all in. So our tools automatically handle all of that. Again, click of a button makes it super easy, and one less thing to worry about with the assignments. And then the other nice feature is we've completely automated the tri-party agreement. The other historical kind of legacy issue or added work with the assignments is just the back office work. Literally old school assignments, you had to print out the tri-party, fill it out, scan it, fax it back to, fax it back to the investor. Now that's completely integrated. And with our connection with Agile, sister company, Danielle, if you want to go to the next slide, that allows us to have all three parties that are part of that tri-party agreement on one platform. We've got buyer, seller, and now broker dealer. And so what happens is, as a seller requests a commitment in the platform to you as a buyer, that tri-party is automatically getting generated in MCT Marketplace, filled out with their signature. When you as a buyer confirm that transaction, that will automatically update the tri-party agreement in the system with your signature and fire it off to the applicable broker dealers for those trades. And so that's huge because, again, we have all three parties that are required on that tri-party file on one platform, and that allows us to completely automate the process. The other benefit, this has all been historically just gone through email. Now there's kind of a centralized database with all three parties. The nice thing is we have a nice user interface, right, to keep track of all of these historical assignments. So as a buyer, especially if you're doing a lot of these, you need to get those positions into your risk management system so that you're accurately reporting your coverage. And so you'll see here, we provide a trade blotter in the system. You can pull up those historical tri-parties that have been executed on the platform. You can see the status. If you've executed them, if you're waiting on the broker dealer. So again, this platform vastly minimizes any potential errors that might occur with the legacy process of missing an email and having to send those over to the broker dealer and the dealer missing them because you didn't send one or two of those. But if there are issues, you also have this user interface to go back to rather than digging through email. So it's a total game changer. Completely removes the vast majority of the friction. Historical excuses for not wanting to offer assignment a trade. Danielle, let's go to the next one. All right, I mentioned analytics. Very, very important. Again, I've mentioned that Correspondent obviously been a very competitive market. And again, very, very dynamic. Things are changing every day as everybody's changing their pricing. So we have a whole suite of tools that allow you to, you as a buyer to kind of monitor your competitiveness, seek out where there's opportunities, and just, be able to slice and dice by different, loan parameters, where you're competitive, where maybe, a small bump in price could lead to an improvement in market share. We have what we call opportunity curves. And so that you'll see that graph there, kind of the upper right. That's going to tell you, hey, if I improve pricing 3 basis points, I would have been better, on X amount of volume. Or if I improve pricing 6 basis points, I would have been better on, double the amount of volume. And again, you can get as granular as filtering that down by state or by, LTV and FICO buckets. There you might be out pretty far on average, but there's always going to be little pockets where, a small improvement can equate to a nice bump in market share. And these opportunity curves are definitely a tool to leverage for that. One of the daily challenges for buyers as well is, you might not change margin, on a given day, but you're seeing your win rate go way up or way down. And Danielle, if you go to the next slide, I think this will help kind of illustrate some peer comparison. So we have some intel, just so you can kind of see the breadth of the market from the other buyer standpoint. We don't share names. Everybody's aliased. You can see what is going directly to the agencies. But you can see, and we have a lot of buyers who are literally looking at this peer comparison page on a daily basis to help explain, their pickup in market share the previous day, or their drop in market share, because they can see if other investors stepped up or backed off, or maybe the agency's got a larger share. So, just a couple examples of some of the many dashboards we have available in our BI tool for investors that help you crunch those numbers on a daily basis and set you up for success on future bids. Danielle, let's pop over to the next. One of the, I would say probably one of the most widely used features on the platform is that live shadow bidding functionality that I mentioned. It's a great way for identifying buyers and sellers that should be transacting together. So with our tools, we make it very easy for buyers. Some of those features that I mentioned make it very easy for buyers to constantly run pricing for a lot of bid tapes, and that's important when you're participating in the shadow bid process, right? You're running a lot of bid tapes. You need a tool that's automated for that. But the flip side is you're able to get your price in front of a lot of prospective sellers on the platform. So we have about 90% of our seller base is opted into this, where they're raising their hand and saying, hey, I want to see executions from other investors out there that I'm not approved with. Number one, to make sure that maybe the existing investor set I have is good, but to make sure that I'm not missing out on anything. And so what you're seeing here, there's a couple things we provide both sellers and buyers. So from the seller standpoint, any given loan sale they're doing on the platform, we show a nice summary of any of the buyers who are there not approved with that are providing a shadow bid that day, just what that would look like. So you can see here, first row, there's a buyer that would have won, 7 of the 10 million, right? Pretty high percentage. And there's the dollar volume, about 21,000 almost, that they're leaving on the table by not being signed up with that investor. So every loan sale, those prospective sellers are seeing these numbers, so they can easily see, if there's someone that would make sense to get approved with. We give them a lot of information. They can pull up the loan level pricing there. They can get more info on the buyer as well, especially if they haven't heard of them before. They can hit that link, that get more info link, and go directly to our investor portal, where you as a buyer can post more marketing collateral, contact information. So we're giving these prospects, a lot of information at their fingertips to be able to help them evaluate if you as a buyer could be a great fit. We do that both on the whole loan and co-issue bids as well. We break that out there. It's very common that many of the sellers on the platform are looking at both. Again, I mentioned, over 200 lenders have the ability to sell directly to the agencies. The vast majority of those, when they're doing their daily loan sale, they're looking at aggregator bids, they're looking at their agency co-issue price, and then they're probably looking at a agency retained price as well. And so there are buyers, if you're, you can certainly offer both, and we have the ability to display that as well. So very powerful tool. Danielle, if you go to the next slide, those sellers also have the ability to pull that up on a historical basis. So outside of just the day-to-day loan sales, sometimes they can be busy. They have a repository on the site where they can go pull down, those historical loan sales, maybe over the last month or over the last 2 months, to see if, see how competitive those prospective investors, have been, if they've consistently been competitive. So again, very, very easy for them to pull that information at their fingertips to help highlight when there's a no-brainer situation. Danielle, you want to go the next? And then we've got some other bells and whistles on the platform. Outside of some of those high level tools, I mentioned the APIs briefly. I mentioned the rate sheet support. If you're a buyer, who's not quite ready to stand up a bid desk or currently only putting out a rate sheet, we can ingest that. I just talked about our investor portal. It's a great way to help get in front of those prospective sellers and just put more information out there for sellers on the platform about, give them a little more info about, what you're about, type of product you're looking for, and we'll take. And then probably some lesser known features that you'll hear more about as we go into 2025. But, we do have some document repository and sharing functionality, chat functionality. All this stuff just makes it easier for buyer and seller to, communicate and transact. If you're a large investor who, is using an API or, has a whole tech team that, you're making updates, we provide dedicated testing environments to help with that. So a lot of other, bells and whistles that are available to you as a buyer on the platform. All right, Danielle, next one. All right, so let's get into CRA. Typically the legacy process is pretty inefficient, right? For those depositors we have on the line, you most likely you're getting some through retail. If you're in Correspondent, you're also buying some. And if you find yourself in that kind of unfortunate position where you've got to source some loans, especially at the end of the year because you're falling short of your goals, right? What do you got to do? Really, what we see out there is you've got to go to the larger lenders out there who have the loans, right? And ideally, you'd like to find those from one large lender. That may not be the case, but it's inefficient, right? Especially at the end of the year, there's a lot of things that can impact pricing once you get to the end of the year, where frankly, there's the supply and demand. You're running a timeline, and you might be paying points over current market just to get the loan. So those larger lenders who have the pipelines, right? They kind of hold all the cards. Danielle, if you want to go to the next slide. So it's inefficient, right? It's manual. It's not really a great consistent way to source that product if you need something to help outside of retail or correspondent channels to help facilitate that production. And you're only viewing the loan collateral that's being shown to you, right? So it's kind of a limited view of what's available. With a lot of folks too, you've kind of got to continually buy from those large lenders in order to kind of get first dibs at what's available, right? And if you fall off, if you stop for periods of time, you kind of lose your place in line, and you move to the back of the line, which makes it even harder, and you're probably paying even more there. So it's just an inefficient way of facilitating the whole process. So what we've done, Danielle, if you go to the next slide, we're bringing the lenders directly to you as a bank that needs to source this through MCT Marketplace. And Danielle, if you go to the next slide, there's a whole host of benefits for that. Right, you're getting transparency, and so what we're doing, we'll show you here in a sec, but basically what our marketplace allows you to do through our CRA tool is, instead of, number one, if you're in Correspondent, you're only bidding on closed loans. You're only being shown a small portion of a lender's pipeline any given day or week. What this allows you to do is peer into a lender's entire hedged pipeline, right? Much bigger universe. You can see what's coming up for sale, a couple days from now, a couple weeks from now, a month or two from now. Much larger universe to look at. So you can kind of get out in front of things before loans close. So it provides a much larger opportunity. The great thing our marketplace can do as well, right, is we can also display these loans that might be available in your footprint from counterparties who you may not be approved with. Right. So it's a great way to say, okay, if I'm continually needing to source loans in, this area, my footprint, here are some sellers who look like they've got a decent amount of the production that we need. They're not currently doing business with us. This is a no-brainer for both parties to get approved and transact. If you're doing correspondent, you can consistently, source loans from them, but also, when needs arise at certain times of the year, right? You've got another partner to source these loans. So you're going straight to the origination source there, which also has the added benefit of a markup from a potential middleman there. So it's a win-win. You as a buyer are paying less. The pay up you are paying is going directly to the originator as well, so they're getting a benefit. So it's definitely a win-win. And having this tool through our CRA marketplace, allows you to constantly kind of keep that pulse on the market throughout the year, rather than having to scramble at the end of the year. So you can constantly make sure you're sourcing those needs throughout the year, just so you're not left in a bind at the end of the year. That security spread commitment feature that I spoke about at the beginning of the call, that's what really makes this possible when we're talking transacting on these CRA loans. If you're looking at an entire pipeline, there's going to be some loans that were just locked, or they're not quite as far along in the process. There's a small chance those loans don't close. So being able to quote essentially a spread on the loan to the lender protects you as a buyer, because again, you don't have the market risk. You're just saying I'm gonna pay up X amount of points or basis points over the underlying TBA, right? And then once the loan actually closes, that price can be finalized once it's guaranteed closed loan. But allows you to transact, in this case for CRA loans, using this type of commitment, which really opens the door to a lot of possibilities volume-wise for you. The seller continues to hedge the loan throughout the process like they'd normally do. So again, if the market drops off over the course of the last couple of weeks, as the loan gets to a funded status or closed status, they're protected because they're hedged on the loan too. So it's a win-win there for everybody. Danielle, I'm going to go to the next slide. So you'll see here, I know this is a little bit small of a graphic, but you can kind of see here our geocoder that MCT has built over the years. As a buyer, you can come in and filter down by those MSA tracks, by those state or county codes, MSA codes. If you've got one track, or maybe you've got a list of tracks, you can upload a file with those tracks, and that's gonna drill down the list. And from there, you can filter down even further if you've got other requirements on what you're buying, be it AMI related, or you want to look at tracked income levels, certain types of products. you can filter that active hedge pipeline database. And what it's going to do is it's going to break it out between your already approved sellers and the other sellers on the platform who you're not approved with. And you'll see there, we give you a list of the loans that are eligible. So you can see, okay, I've got, 18 tracks, and it looks like there's, about 30 clients with, 53 units or 15 million available in the database, right? And then we can see, list all those out. You can go through without displaying any NPI. To start, you can kind of go through the list of what's available and make a bid at the loan level or on a list of loans. So again, it's a great way to source these types of loans consistently throughout the year rather than waiting till last minute. Danielle, you want to move to the next one? All right. So one of the really exciting things, we built this CRA marketplace over the years to facilitate CRA as the market has gotten more spec oriented, as FHFA has imposed more AMI related goals on the agencies. That's a lot of the buyers out there. We're extending this concept, this tool, not just for CRA, but for any and all loans that a buyer might have an axe for, right? So the obvious ones, spec product, AMI related product, it could be geographical or high val or any other type of loan parameter that a buyer is looking to source for whatever reason, right? We think this is a great way for those aggregators out there who, if you're an MBS seller and you're creating spec pools, you have pool minimums, right? You've got to have a minimum of 1 million for those spec pools. You might have 900,000 for that spec, and maybe that spec is paying up 2 points. You need 1 or 2 more loans to fill that pool. Great way to come in and take a look at not just what's being shown to you that day, but you get visibility into the entire universe of loans that are in the manufacturing process and will be sold either soon or a little bit further out. That opens up the universe for you as a buyer and get out in front and make an offer to a seller or a handful of sellers to try to lock down those loans early. So now you have confidence, that you can meet those pool minimums. So it's what we call pool completion is just one of the things, one of the applications we think this is going to be super valuable. Agency directives, obviously, with the AMI related stuff. If you're a buyer needing to, pick up on some of your LIP and VLIP goals, again, great way to peer in and see, which sellers are originating a lot of this stuff. You can get out in front of and try to work a deal. And then there's obvious, portfolio needs. Again, if you're a bank and looking for a certain type of product or need to buy a lot of high FICO Govy loans because your compare ratios are, a little off. It's just a great way to dive in and see what's available, the entire platform. For you as a buyer, right, you're getting an entire view of the market. So you can see what's out there. It's going to help for forecasting for future months, but also that's giving you greater certainty into what's available. And as it relates to spec and those minimums, if you have greater confidence that you can get, you can hit those minimums, you're probably more, that's giving you more confidence to pass a larger percentage of that spec pay up through to the sellers, right? So you can get more competitive because there's a decent amount out there, and based on past hit rates or just speaking with some of the sellers that have been identified here and locking in some of those loans early, you can pass through a larger percentage of that spec pay up. So win for you as a buyer, win for the seller, getting maybe a better price. It's just all around bringing greater transparency in the process. So we're going to be excited to expanding that functionality you know, to buyers out there who can kind of put this to work. Danielle, you want to move to the next slide there? This is just kind of illustrating that, you know, how that security spread commitment could be used as well for the open pipeline transactions, right? Buyers just bypassing closed loans, not bypassing, but given the ability to go directly to view the hedged pipeline. So you're seeing a much larger universe of loans. And again, with some of those loans being at various stages, the manufacturing process, you can leverage that security spread commitment that's available on the platform to transact on those loans that maybe need a little more time before they're closed. Danielle, you want to go to the next? All right. I think that's blank. Yeah, we'll have some links for folks in this file that we send out, helpful links to some blogs and other resources on our website, just more information about our tools and some of the other features available as a buyer. I know we got a couple minutes left. If there's any questions, please type those. Do my best to answer. If I know we got some folks that, you know, probably need to digest, you can always reach out to us, reach out to myself, reach out to our investor services team, investorservices@mctrade.net. And of course, we've got some other information for y'all here with our website and other ways to get a hold of us. So doesn't look like we have any questions at the moment. So yeah, we will say goodbye here. Thanks everyone for popping on, and again, feel free to reach out to me or MCT with any questions on any of the topics that we covered here today. So appreciate your time, and have a good week. Good Thanksgiving next week, and yeah, we'll see y'all and talk to y'all soon.